The 911 call comes in at 2:19 a.m. The operator immediately notices something is off. The caller isn't panicked in the way people usually are. His voice is low, controlled, almost rehearsed, but there's a tightness underneath like he's holding something back. I think there's been a mistake, the man says. I just finished a ride, but there's no one in my car. Outside, rain hammers against the windshield of a yellow taxi stopped under a flickering streetlight. The engine is still running. The meter is still on. When officers arrive, their body cameras capture an unusual scene. A cab pulled over neatly to the curb, hazard lights blinking. Driver seated upright with both hands on the wheel, as if he's afraid to move. The driver turns slowly. He was right there, he tells them, nodding toward the back seat. Right behind me. Police check the car. The back seat is dry, undisturbed, empty, no jacket, no fingerprints, no sign that anyone has sat there recently. And yet the system tells a different story. The ride is logged, the route is mapped, the fare is paid in full. Even more unsettling, the interior camera footage shows the entire trip, from pickup to drop-off. And for the entire duration, the back seat is completely empty. The officers exchange glances. This isn't a prank call. This isn't intoxication. The driver isn't confused, defensive, or evasive. If anything, he looks disturbed, not because he's lying, but because the evidence is about to prove that reality itself disagrees with him. And that raises a terrifying question. If no one was ever in the back seat, then who did the taxi just drop off? The driver's name is Michael Harris, 46 years old. He's been driving a taxi on the night shift for nearly 12 years. No criminal record, no complaints, no prior incidents that would flag him as unstable or unreliable. From the start, officers notice something important. Michael isn't trying to control the conversation. He answers questions directly. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't over-explain. When he doesn't know something, he says so, a behavior that psychologists often associate with truthful recall rather than fabrication. His body language stays open, hands visible, posture relaxed but alert. When asked to describe the passenger, Michael doesn't hesitate. Male, early 30s, dark jacket, sat right behind me. That seat choice matters. Most passengers sit diagonally, giving themselves space. Sitting directly behind the driver suggests either habit or intent. Michael explains that the passenger spoke only a few times. Calm voice, no accent that stood out. What did stand out was confidence. He knew where he was going, Michael says, didn't need directions. Officers circle back to the obvious problem, the camera footage. Michael doesn't argue. He doesn't get angry. Instead, he watches the screen in silence as the empty back seat plays back in front of him. This is where deception usually cracks. Liars often react emotionally when confronted with evidence: frustration, sarcasm, denial. Michael does none of that. His brow tightens. He leans forward. "That's not right," he says quietly. His breathing changes, slower, controlled, as if he's grounding himself. "I know what I saw." At this point, investigators have a decision to make. Either Michael is experiencing a psychological episode so vivid it overrides recorded reality, or he's telling the truth, and something far more disturbing is unfolding. For now, they choose a neutral classification. Michael Harris is not a suspect, but he is no longer just a witness. He is now a critical variable in a case that no longer makes sense. At police headquarters, detectives stop treating the taxi ride like an anecdote and start treating it like evidence. The first stop is the taxi company's digital log system. The ride is there. Pickup time, 1:42 a.m. Drop-off time, 2:11 a.m. Distance, 7.3 miles. Fare, $38.60 including a late-night surcharge. Nothing is missing. Nothing is altered. Every data point lines up perfectly. Next, GPS tracking. The route shows no deviations, no unexplained stops, no detours that would suggest the driver pulled over or picked someone up illegally. The car moved smoothly from point A to point B, obeying traffic patterns, stopping at lights, slowing at intersections. Then comes the payment. The fare was paid by credit card, approved instantly. No fraud alert, no decline. The card belongs to Daniel Cooper, a 32-year-old male. That name immediately triggers a response. Daniel Cooper was reported missing 3 days earlier. Detectives pull up the interior camera footage again, this time frame by frame. The timestamp matches the GPS data exactly. The lighting is stable, no signal drop, no corrupted frames. The back seat is empty the entire time, yet the system insists someone was there. From an investigative standpoint, this is a nightmare scenario. Digital evidence is supposed to eliminate uncertainty, not create it. When technology contradicts a human witness, police usually trust the technology. But here, every system agrees with itself and disagrees with reality. Detectives quietly change the language they use in reports. This is no longer a discrepancy. It's an anomaly, and anomalies demand explanation. Because if Daniel Cooper's card paid for a ride he never took, and a passenger existed without appearing on camera, then someone is manipulating the system. Or worse, someone planned this. Daniel Cooper doesn't look like someone who simply vanished. 32 years old, financial analyst, no criminal history, no known enemies. Friends describe him as quiet, predictable, routine-driven, the kind of person whose life follows patterns. And patterns don't break without reason. 3 days before the taxi incident, Daniel failed to show up for work. His phone went straight to voicemail. By evening, his sister filed a missing person report. Officers noted nothing unusual in his apartment, no forced entry, no struggle, no sign of packing or preparation. His car sat untouched in the parking garage. Detectives begin reconstructing his final known movements. The last confirmed phone ping places Daniel near Westbridge Avenue at 1:36 a.m. 6 minutes later. The taxi pickup was logged less than a block away. Coincidence feels unlikely. Bank records reveal mounting stress. Recent overdrafts, maxed out credit cards, a notice of termination from his employer dated 2 weeks earlier. Pressure had been building quietly. Family interviews add emotional context. His sister insists Daniel wouldn't run. He hated unpredictability, she says. Even changing restaurants stressed him out. Friends confirm he often used taxis late at night. He disliked driving after dark, preferred control without responsibility, someone else behind the wheel. To investigators, Daniel becomes something more than a missing person. He becomes a person of interest in his own disappearance. Was he attempting to leave his life behind? Was he meeting someone he trusted? Or was he walking into something he never saw coming? Then detectives notice one detail that shifts the tone. The credit card used in the taxi ride was Daniel's, but Daniel himself had not been seen in 72 hours. If he wasn't in the cab, then whoever paid for that ride wanted police to believe he was. And that suggests planning, deliberate planning, the kind that precedes something irreversible. By the time Michael Harris is brought into the interview room, the tone has changed. This isn't a casual statement anymore. A small camera is mounted in the corner. The table is bare. The air feels heavier. An officer reads Michael his Miranda rights, slow and deliberate. Michael listens carefully, nodding at the right moments. "I understand," he says. His voice is steady. Detectives begin with neutral questions. They ask him to retell the ride from the beginning. Michael complies, recounting the timeline in the same order, using the same phrasing. Consistency like this is difficult to fake over long periods of stress. Then they introduce pressure. They show him the footage again, the empty back seat, the entire ride. Michael watches without blinking. No anger, no defensiveness. Instead, his jaw tightens slightly, a sign of internal conflict, not deception. "That's not what it looked like," he says. "I don't know how else to explain it." Silence follows. This is intentional. Detectives know that silence often forces liars to fill gaps, but Michael doesn't rush to speak. He waits. Breath controlled, hands folded. Then he adds something new. "He told me where to turn," Michael says quietly. "Before the GPS did." The room changes. That information was never released. Detectives exchange a glance. This detail couldn't have come from reports, rumors, or media leaks. They press him harder now. What did the passenger say? How did he sound? Did anything feel off? Michael pauses. Not off, he says. Purposeful. Like he didn't want to be noticed. From a psychological standpoint, Michael shows none of the markers of fabrication. No escalating emotion. No shifting story. No attempt to redirect blame. If he's lying, he's doing it with a level of control rarely seen. And if he isn't, then someone was in that car. Someone who knew exactly how not to be seen. Detectives move quickly. The next step is legal, precise, and meticulous. Drafting an affidavit. Every word matters because it authorizes access to sensitive evidence, surveillance cameras, phone metadata, and financial records. The first revelation comes from the bank. The credit card used to pay for the taxi, Daniel Cooper's, shows activity after the ride. Withdrawals, small purchases, even a late-night convenience store purchase. The timing doesn't match the missing person timeline. Whoever is using the card is not only impersonating Daniel, they are manipulating his life digitally. Next, surveillance footage is collected. ATM cameras, nearby gas stations, street-facing security systems. At first glance, faces are obscured, shadows stretch across the lenses, and no one can be positively identified. Then, a technician notices a small but crucial detail. A figure moves through the frame, deliberately low to the ground, avoiding detection. The person's gait and posture suggest intent, awareness, someone careful, methodical. Detectives begin piecing together the sequence. The ride wasn't a glitch. It was part of a plan. Michael Harris's testimony becomes vital. Every small detail he remembered, the tone of the passenger's voice, the direction he suggested before the GPS, his calm but assertive demeanor now fits a larger puzzle. The DA reads the affidavit. Legal language makes the danger tangible. They are no longer dealing with a simple missing person. The terms in the report escalate quickly. Premeditated murder, identity manipulation, evidence tampering. These are no longer possibilities. They are now working hypotheses grounded in real, traceable actions. The tension rises. Investigators understand something chilling. The passenger, whoever or whatever he was deliberately invisible. Every move calculated, every trace controlled. Michael Harris wasn't imagining it. He was part of a system of observation, a witness to a crime that left almost no evidence in plain sight. The affidavit becomes the backbone of the next stage. Warrants are filed, search locations identified. The investigation is about to pivot from digital anomalies to physical evidence. And for the first time, the detectives truly feel the shadow of what they are chasing. Days into the investigation, frustration reaches a breaking point. Every system had failed to show what the driver insisted was real. The taxi's interior camera, meticulously maintained, recorded the entire trip, yet every frame displayed the same empty seat. For the detectives, the situation teetered on the edge of disbelief. Then a technician revisits the footage, not for anomalies but for technical minutiae. He examines the camera's firmware, the compression algorithm, even the motion detection triggers. Slowly, a pattern emerges. The camera automatically compresses frames when contrast is low, and at night with streetlights casting shadows across the leather upholstery, a subtle silhouette simply disappears. The camera didn't malfunction. It didn't lie intentionally. It omitted reality in the name of data efficiency. With advanced image reconstruction software, analysts enhance brightness, tweak contrast, and stabilize the footage frame by frame. And there it is. A faint outline, a shadow of a passenger, moving precisely where Michael said he sat. His jacket folds, a hand brushes the seat, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable when properly highlighted. Psychologically, this moment changes everything. Michael Harris, once doubted, is validated. His recollection was accurate. He wasn't hallucinating or lying. The detective's assumptions that digital evidence is infallible are shattered. But the revelation raises new questions. If the passenger existed and remained invisible to technology, why? Why choose a taxi? Why manipulate the journey so subtly? The silence in Michael's earlier recounting now echoes in the detectives' minds. This was not a random anomaly. It was deliberate. Now the case pivots. It is no longer a mystery of a missing man. It is a calculated act of concealment, a crime designed to erase itself from plain sight. Every step the investigators take must account for an adversary who understands surveillance, timing, and perception. Michael sits in the room, quietly observing the enhanced footage. There is no relief on his face, only the weight of having witnessed something sinister, something that almost defied proof. And for the detectives, the chase has just become far more complex. Just when the investigation seems to stabilize, Michael Harris recalls a detail he hadn't mentioned before, a small, almost imperceptible moment during the ride. I remember him saying something about a second stop, Michael tells detectives, voice low. We never went there, but he mentioned it. A warehouse, I think. Old industrial place near the river. At first, officers are skeptical. Nothing in the taxi logs indicates a second destination. No GPS deviations. No recorded payment. But something about the specificity nags at them. It's a location known to local police, abandoned, rarely patrolled, a perfect place to hide something. A search warrant is quickly drafted. Detectives move to the industrial site at dawn, boots crunching on frost-covered gravel. The warehouse looms, broken windows, rusted metal, graffiti peeling from the walls. Shadows cling to corners, making the air feel thick and watchful. Inside, they find traces almost invisible to the untrained eye. Blood spatters along a beam. A shattered phone, recognizable as Daniel Cooper's, lies on the concrete floor, cracked screen reflecting the first streaks of sunlight. Every piece of evidence confirms what Michael had said. The passenger was real, he existed, and he had been led here deliberately. Forensics take over, cataloging, photographing, and collecting samples. The evidence points unmistakably to homicide. The previously missing man is now confirmed dead. The ride that shouldn't have existed is now a central piece of a crime scene, connecting digital anomalies, witness testimony, and physical evidence. The psychological profile begins to crystallize. Whoever orchestrated this had forethought, a calculated understanding of timing, technology, and perception. This wasn't a spontaneous crime. It was meticulously planned. Michael's observations, subtle, precise, now become the backbone of understanding how the perpetrator manipulated reality. The detectives step back, realizing the stakes. Every earlier assumption about visibility, surveillance, and reliability of evidence must be recalibrated. The case transforms from a bizarre anomaly into a premeditated murder investigation, where the line between truth and illusion was deliberately blurred. Weeks later, the investigation reaches its climax in a crowded courtroom. The suspect, Daniel Cooper's business partner, Mark Reynolds, sits at the defense table, calm but taut, eyes flicking between the jury and the DA. The district attorney lays out the case with surgical precision. Surveillance footage, credit card logs, Michael Harris's testimony, and forensic evidence from the warehouse are all presented. Every detail aligns. The taxi ride, once dismissed as a technical anomaly, becomes the pivotal thread in proving Reynolds' premeditated actions. The DA's tone emphasizes planning. This was not an accident. This was deliberate. A man used another man's life as a mask, manipulated digital records, and chose the cover of night to erase him from the world. The defense attempts to discredit Michael Harris, calling into question memory, perception, and even his credibility. They argue the camera footage was incomplete, the lighting poor, and the entire story could be misremembered. But when cross-examined, Michael remains consistent. Small behavioral cues, steady breathing, measured tone, open posture, convey confidence and truthfulness. Each time the defense presses, he provides the same details. The passenger's voice, gestures, and instructions that align perfectly with what later evidence revealed. The jury deliberates for just over 3 hours. When the verdict is read, a hush falls across the courtroom. Guilty, premeditated murder. Reynolds' facade of control crumbles. Sentencing follows, life without parole. The judge's voice is firm, almost echoing in the empty corners of the room. The law cannot ignore those who manipulate reality to commit the unthinkable. Justice must prevail. Outside the courthouse, Michael Harris steps into daylight for the first time in weeks, exhausted but resolute. He doesn't celebrate. He doesn't gloat. He simply acknowledges the weight of what he witnessed and reported. The ride that shouldn't have existed is now recorded in law. For the detectives, the case closes, but the lessons linger. Trust human observation, even when technology says otherwise. Sometimes truth hides in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. Months later, life moves on, at least on the surface. Michael Harris returns to night shifts behind the wheel of his taxi, but something has changed. He avoids quiet streets. He refuses late runs when the fog rolls in. Every reflective surface, car mirrors, store windows, even the glint of a passing headlights, reminds him of that night, that shadow, that silhouette that shouldn't have existed. The taxi company upgrades its cameras, installs higher definition units, motion-sensitive triggers, and backup recording systems. Michael trains newer drivers on vigilance, caution, and observation. They learn to trust what they see, even when the technology seems to deny it. Psychologically, the case leaves a lasting imprint. Detectives and officers alike report a subtle shift in how they perceive evidence, witnesses, and anomalies. The last passenger wasn't just a victim. He was a puzzle, a deliberate absence that forced everyone to reconsider assumptions about truth, perception, and the reliability of modern surveillance. Even now, when Michael recounts the story, his tone is calm but measured. There is no dramatization, no embellishment. He emphasizes the weight of observation, the responsibility of witnessing. Sometimes, he tells interviewers years later, the most dangerous lies aren't spoken. They're invisible. They exist in the space between what you see and what you don't. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss them. The camera, upgraded and unobstructed, now records every passenger without fail. Yet the memory of that ride, that ghostly silhouette in the back seat, remains etched in every frame of Michael's mind. The case closes in legal terms. The perpetrator is imprisoned. The victim is remembered. But the last passenger endures as a haunting lesson. Evidence can be manipulated, technology can mislead, but human perception, careful, observant, patient, it can reveal truths that no system ever could. As Michael drives into the night, headlights cutting through mist, the faint echo of that silent passenger lingers, a reminder that some presences are felt even when they cannot be seen.